let's talk about the WWE divas. If all things in professional wrestling advanced and changed the most, that would have been women's wrestling. Back in the 1980s, women's wrestling struggled. I mean, Vince McMahon tried to bring them out at the odd WrestleMania, at the odd event with women's wrestling. It never worked. And do you know why it never worked? I'm going to tell you why it never worked. Because everybody was all used to seeing the Ultimate Warrior, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, Sergeant Slaughter, these big giants in the ring. And then during those big matches, the women wrestling would be about the middle of the wrestling card. Women wrestling would come out during the middle of the event. Here we are with two tiny people. Fans are trying to readjust from seeing the giants to these little tiny people, and it never worked. I mean, women's wrestling changed in the 1990s, in the late 1990s, when they brought the Sable, what was it, Tamara Lynch, Sunny, China, Joanne Laurie, whatever I believe her name was. They say Sable, but anyways, during the Attitude Era was when women's wrestling really took off. Vince McMahon had to bring in not the Attitude Era for women's wrestling, but the diva. People don't want to see wrestling. They want to see entertainment, and they want to see divas entertainment wrestling. And that's where the competition really took off. I mean, if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, I don't think women's wrestling would have worked. And not only when Vince McMahon took off with it, another great thing happened for women in wrestling. So did the WCW. Now, their company was starting off with women's wrestling. Fans were tuning into it. Not because of the women's wrestling, because it was divas and entertainment to entertain their crowd. I mean, WWE had to change its persona with it. I mean, they had to push the button with it a bit. I mean, Sable, I guess she pulled a stunt. What was it, the Royal Rumble? She went out to the ring. She had makeup over her breast. And Jerry Lawler was in the ring and she took it off. Stunned the world. I didn't care, but I feel that's the direction that WWE has to go down with their wrestlers. Women wrestling. Go from the PG era to the R-rated era. But how do we bring nudity into the WWE pay-per-view events with children in the crowd, which can cause legal problems for Vince McMahon and the WWE? This is the direction where WWE has to go down with the women's wrestling. But how do we do that without violating the law? But if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, I truly believe that women's wrestling would not have survived. I mean, if anybody deserves credit, Vince McMahon is that for women's wrestling. It had nothing to do with being sexist, why women's wrestling didn't work. It had nothing to do with that at all. It had a beat that wasn't there, and it needed it. And Vince McMahon was that person that figured out what to do with it. And because of that, it took right off. I contacted WWE a few years back and I said, why don't we have a WWE Women's Tag Team Belts? We got a Women's Championship. What about a Women's Tag Team Belts? Now they have it. And when you look at WWE Women's Wrestling today, it's non-stop. It's steady. And, you know, I think Vince McMahon really does deserve credit on that era when it comes to women's wrestling. He really does deserve credit for saving the women's wrestling industry. As we know, WWE, Impact Wrestling, the Ring of Honor, God knows how many wrestling companies that there is out there. Without you, the fans at home, realizing it, but these wrestling companies are actually struggling to stay afloat. I mean, they really are. And they would also like to avoid from going under like the WCW did on March 26th of 2001. What needs to happen is the WWE, Impact Wrestling, the Ring of Honor, even the UFC Fighting Championship Worlds needs to stop competing with one another and work together to afford their own network, their own community, work together so it can save its industry that it's in. I mean, when the UFC was fighting past legalized for it to operate, it replaced professional boxing. It actually replaced wrestling as we know it. People don't want to tune into wrestling. They want to see this UFC fighting championship world over here because it's real. The only thing real in wrestling is two things: contract disputes and the injuries. Your superstars disappear for a very long time because they're hurt, and it takes a long time to recover. And what they try to do at times is, when they try to come back to entertain you, the fans at home, is, what I don't like what they do is, they resort to painkillers. And you often see in the news wrestlers dead about at the age of 38, 39 because they had a heart attack from painkillers, which ended their life short. And we don't want to see that. I really don't. But I truly believe that cable television, with professional wrestling, has to be relooked at, transformed into an empire, a capability where all the fans can tune into professional wrestling without any issues. So it's affordable, it's costly, and so it's not out of reach for you, the fans. But I also feel that pay-per-view is a thing of the past. Nobody turns into pay-per-view anymore. Have a $2 fee to tune in to this championship, to this wrestling channel network. WrestleMania, Survivor Series, Monday Night Raw, TNA Wrestling, Ring of Honor, UFC, it's all there. I mean, pay-per-view it's gone now. It really is. I don't think there's anybody that tunes into pay-per-view anymore. I mean, I think wrestling is the only people that use pay-per-view. I mean, I don't think the UFC does it anymore. They might. I don't really think they do, but no, wrestling pay-per-view is the thing of the past, and that's something that has to be looked at. Maybe wrestling needs to, well, they do. Not maybe, they do. They have to work together and work on their own network and move forward that way, so it's affordable, so the fans can tune in and then they can see what they want. Wrestlers bounce back and forth from company to company, but that's what really needs to be done. The best tag team, the best wrestling tag teams of all time, these are my picks: the Rock and Roll Express, Demolition, the Hart Foundation, the Outsiders, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, the Rockers, the Quebecers, I love those guys, and the Head Shrinkers. WWE roster. Well, let's talk about the first one. I ain't got all the wrestlers with the WWE roster because we'll be here forever. I just picked some of them out. Some of them you may not hear, but you at home make this decision on your own. And Vince, if you're watching, tune in. Natalya Neidhart. My opinion about her: she's great. She's great, gifted, talented in the wrestling world. She's underrated. She deserves more opportunities, but I also feel she needs to win more matches. Every time you see in the ring, she's always tapping out, or she lost a match to somebody. And, you know, it's all right to lose a match here and there, but when you're a big pile, you know, especially when you're expected to win, you got to win some matches here, or you got to send you on your way. But I feel Natalya is underrated. She should be champion in the championship contender list anyways, but that's what I have to say about her. Ronda Rousey. Perfect. Can't get any better than her. Perfect women's champion worthy. If anybody deserves the championship belt, it's her, because at least she's from the UFC. She knows how to fight. She knows how to put on a show, but the problem is, if you got somebody from the UFC that's quite capable of quite the damage, if this person wanted to do it, they can easily do it. So how do they drop the belt on a reasonable level? Like Brock Lesnar, really nobody can beat him, but how would you get him to lose the belt? Ronda Rousey's the same thing. Championship worthy. She's basically one of the women that's going to help Vince save WWE in the wrestling world, but she is somebody that I would keep in WWE for sure. Drew McIntyre. My comments on him is, I watch he's rebuilding mode, but things need to start getting better for him. I mean, I watch his gimmick off and on. Try to give him a belt, see how the fans react. But I also feel Drew McIntyre's run in WWE is also behind him, because he was in WWE for a long number of years before. And his time in WWE may be over. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just saying it may be. John Cena. I feel John Cena won the belt far too many times in WWE. Fans are tired of seeing him as champion. You can't give him the belt anymore because it's like watching a broken record. It's dull and it's boring. And it's too expected. You don't want things that are too expected in the wrestling world. You want to be unexpected. The last thing what you want is a wrestling fan predicting the matches and it actually happens, and that's what's wrong with John Cena as champion. He's too predictable. Perhaps sending John Cena to TNA Wrestling and have him help these other companies is something to be looking forward to, because it gives a fresh start to John Cena, but it also gives a fresh start to the wrestling community also. Former wrestlers go from the WWE to WCW. Vince McMahon didn't like it, but at the same time, it was like a medication helping out another company. And it helped out the wrestlers to a fresh start. And it was entertaining and unpredictable for fans at home, and that's what you want, and that's what you need. You need a fresh start. Bobby Lashley, perfect. That's all I can say about that. AJ Styles. That is one wrestler Vince McMahon should be investing his time and money in. AJ Styles. He's definitely champion worthy, and I keep him around the block with the WWE for a very long time. Bobby Roode. You can't get any better than that. Hold on to Bobby Roode as long as you can, Vince. Hold this guy on as long as you can. He is, in my opinion, another John Cena, Bret Hart wrestler. Hold this guy on, because he will help you restart the WWE to the jumpstart what it needs. Keep Bobby Roode there. Dean Ambrose, I'd say send him on to TNA Wrestling. If you're going to go through rebuilding mode at WWE, maybe Dean Ambrose is the one to send on its way to TNA Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, whatever you want to call it, because they could use fresh start, and you can take talent from them what they don't no longer need. Rhino. I feel he should retire. I really believe that. He's just in the way. He's just there filling in an empty gap for a wrestler because they're out sick. Let's bring in Rhino. ECW. It's time for him to retire. Rey Mysterio. It's getting time for him to retire. Keep him around, but he wants to win the title. I'd say, all right, we can give it to him. Well, his real name is Oscar. All right, I agree to give it to him, but I wouldn't invest a whole lot of great deal of time in Rey Mysterio, because it's actually time for him to retire. Like, do you see any of these wrestlers he worked with in WCW still around? They're retired. The Miz. I do him a favor. I say, but you want to stick in the wrestling, I'll tell you what, why don't we work out a deal? We'll send you on to Impact Wrestling to help save the wrestling community. But he's overrated in WWE. He really is. He gotta go. He means well. I mean, I'm sure the Miz, Mike, his real name Mike, if he's watching, you're a good guy, you mean well, but I feel you're in the way of other WWE talent that could use your spotlight, who needs it to rebuild their careers or have their careers take off. And last thing what we need is a failed wrestler, or a wrestler who's not selling out to the crowd or to the fans. Getting in the way of wrestlers could be a lot more, successful in the WWE, and can help WWE advance and reintegrate with the fans who have tuned out from WWE because the talent was lacking. But the Miz, I feel it's time for him to go. The best wrestling groups of all time: Evolution, Degeneration X, The Nation of Domination, The Hart Foundation. Here's the classical one, The Four Horsemen. And last and not least, the NWO. My favorite wrestler of all time would have to be Bret the Hitman Hart. There you have it. But anyways, I thank you for tuning in here at Wrestle Fest. And trust me when I tell you this, address the WWE about your wrestling experiences while watching WWE. And I'm going to give you a tip here. Vince McMahon is actually on Twitter. Tweet him, tell him, do videos like this. Tell Vince McMahon what you want to see. Tell Vince McMahon you're tired of seeing the dull, boring wrestling. You want something new and fresh. You want something entertaining. Taking WWE from the PG era to the R-rated era is something to be looking at. But let's entertain the fans. Let's make it interesting again. But anyways, thank you for joining me here at WrestleFest.